Rabbits don't just hop, they sprout horns. It's the result of a virus first identified in the 1930s by virologist Richard Shope. It causes keratin tumours that harden into grotesque antler-like growths, sometimes twisting inches long. Back in medieval Europe, these horned rabbits terrified villagers who believed they were cursed demonic creatures. Imagine wandering through the woods in the 1500s and spotting a rabbit with big black horns branching from its head. It's the stuff of nightmares. So let's get started. Here are 20 random facts, so strange you'll think I'm making them up. But I'm not. They're true. And on the topic of nightmares, New York once had one of its own. In August 2018, more than 25,000 bees swarmed a hot dog stand in Times Square, covering umbrellas, halting traffic, and drawing a massive crowd of onlookers. The NYPD had to call their official bee cop. Yes, that was a real job, and an officer assigned to their beekeeper unit to vacuum up the bees safely. To witnesses, it looked like a tornado of bees buzzing right through Manhattan. It made headlines as one of the city's strangest emergencies. Not much scarier than a bee tornado. Except the idea that heart attacks might actually be contagious. For decades, doctors blamed cholesterol, smoking, and lifestyle for heart disease. But a 2019 study from the University of Helsinki found bacteria hiding inside arterial plaque. These microbes form sticky biofilms, microscopic fortresses that let them survive for years inside the gunk lining in your arteries. And when they rupture, they can trigger inflammation and clots, leading to the inevitable heart attack. Your arteries could be harboring this dangerous bacteria. And here's where the contagious part comes in. Other infections, like the flu or pneumonia, can reactivate those bacterial colonies. In other words, the illness you catch could set off these microbes and push you into cardiac arrest. One day your doctor might be handing you antibiotics for your arteries, but it's AI that already knows if you'll take them. In 2024, researchers introduced an AI model called Centaur, trained on over 10 million decisions that can predict human behavior, even in situations it hasn't seen before. In tests, it anticipated how people would behave with surprising accuracy. It knows whether you'll buy that coffee, swipe right, or binge another season on Netflix, all before you've even decided yourself. Disturbing or simply inevitable? I guess we'll see. But back to something a little more lifelike. In the 1990s, scientists in Parma, Italy, discovered special types of brain cells called mirror neurons while studying monkeys. Special because they didn't just fire up when the monkeys grabbed peanuts, but also when it watched someone else perform the same action. Humans have them too, and they explain why we wince when someone stubs their toe, or why yawns are contagious. It's empathy wired at the cellular level. Of course, not everyone's brain is wired the same. I mean, just ask the woman who failed her driving test nearly 1,000 times. Cha Sa-soon, a South Korean woman in her 60s, became a national sensation for failing her driving test 960 times over 8 years. She sat for the written exam almost every day, refused to quit, and by the time she finally passed in 2010, she'd become a local celebrity. Her persistence impressed the nation to the point where Hyundai even gifted her a brand new car, hopefully with a generous insurance policy. She's not the only one to take obsession to the extreme. I mean, just look at the guy who nearly died from popcorn. Wayne Watson from Colorado loved microwave popcorn so much he ate 2 to 3 bags a day for years. What he didn't know was that the buttery aroma came from diacetyl, a chemical flavoring that can scar lung tissue. He developed what they call popcorn lung, a disease where airways become so damaged they can't properly carry oxygen. It's the same chemical you can find in e-cigarettes. Suddenly, that bag of movie theatre popcorn doesn't look so harmless. But while one guy nearly died from popcorn, other cultures celebrate death by literally digging up their loved ones and dancing with them in the street. In Madagascar, families honour their ancestors with a ritual called Famidihana, or the turning of the bones. Every few years, loved ones exhume their relatives' remains, carefully rewrap them in fresh cloth, and carry them through the village while music and dancing fill the streets. The BBC documented this practice in 2017, capturing families laughing, singing, and treating it as a joyful reunion rather than a somber funeral. To outsiders, it may seem unusual, but for them, it's a way of keeping the memory alive. And keeping memories alive isn't something we're doing quite well. In 2012, German neuroscientist Manfred Spitzer coined the term digital dementia to describe how our endless screen use is destroying our memory and attention. It's not just a theory. In South Korea, doctors have reported teenagers struggling with early memory loss because they're so addicted to their smartphones. Some kids are even forgetting basic things like appointments or directions home. Researchers warn that obsession over our phones is actually rewiring our brains. Technology might be making life easier, but it's also doing some serious damage. And next up, let's move from memory to time. Psychologist David Eagleman found that new experiences make time feel slower, but when life is predictable, it fast forwards. That's why childhood summers seem endless. Every day was new, but when we get older, it's all the same routine and the days blur together. Think back to your last holiday. The first few days felt long, but by the end, before you realized it, the week vanished. So what's the lesson here? If you want to slow time down, go out and experience new things. If you don't, life will just fly by. And on the topic of time, let's talk about Disney's longest character. It isn't Mickey, it's Pete the cat. Before Mickey Mouse ever whistled on Steamboat Willie, there was Pete, a peg-legged cat who debuted in Alice Solves the Puzzle back in 1925. That makes him Disney's oldest continuing character, beating out Mickey by 3 years. He's appeared in more than 40 cartoons, always bullies Mickey, Donald, and Goofy, and nearly a century later, he's still Disney's longest-running villain. From cartoons to cartography, let's travel to the most remote place on Earth, Point Nemo. It sits in the South Pacific, about 1,500 nautical miles from the nearest land. That makes it so isolated that astronauts aboard the ISS, orbiting 250 miles above Earth, are closer than any humans on land. Scientists call it the oceanic pole of inaccessibility. It's where space agencies deliberately crash decommissioned satellites, earning it the nickname the spacecraft graveyard. It's a good thing those satellites don't come with passengers, because a human life can be expensive. I mean, have you ever wondered what your life is worth on paper? The US Department of Transportation has. They call it the value of a statistical life. These days, their magic number is just over $13.5 million. It's less about the individual and more about the math, measuring whether safety upgrades save enough lives to justify the cost. For example, if new airbags or stronger guardrails prevent enough deaths to outweigh the expense, they get approved. A pretty depressing way to measure human life, but it's how governments decide what lives are worth saving. From putting a price on life to a price on pixels. Back in 2005, a broke college kid made a fortune from the internet by literally selling one pixel at a time. Alex Chu launched a site called the $1 Million Homepage. It was a blank 1000 times 1000 grid where each pixel cost $1. People rushed to buy their tiny slice of online real estate, turning it into a chaotic billboard of ads. And by the time the last square was filled, Chu had pocketed over $1 million. But at least that marketing stunt was honest. I mean, the next one, not so much. A 2010 study in the International Journal of Fashion Design found that women's jeans labelled as one size could vary as much as 6 inches in the waist. It's not sloppy manufacturing, it's intentional vanity sizing. It's a trick to flatter customers into thinking they're smaller than they actually are. People feel better when they think they wear a smaller size. It boosts confidence, self-image, and more importantly, sales. If your size doesn't fit, chances are it's not an accident, just an elaborate ploy to mislead you. And speaking of lies, some dogs are trained to sniff out deception of a very different kind. Meet Bear, a black Labrador with a very unusual talent. He's an electronics detection dog. These canines are trained to detect tripenyl phosphine oxide, a chemical used in the coatings of hard drives, memory sticks, and SD cards. Bear was one of the first digital detection dogs, helping investigators uncover hidden devices in high-profile cases. But while Labradors hunt for hidden hard drives, sushi masters hunt for previously discarded delicacies. I'm talking about the fatty tuna belly known as Toro. today it's one of the most expensive cuts in sushi. A single bluefin at Tokyo's famous fish auctions can sell for over $1 million, all thanks to that marbled, buttery belly. But before World War II, chefs thought of it as too oily. They'd end up feeding it to the animals or tossing it aside. Fast forward about 80 years, and that same cut has become the crown jewel of high-end sushi menus. Still, $1 million for a fish? That's a bit much. And speaking of weird fish-related things, imagine strolling down the beach and coming face to face with what looks like a giant alien eel. In 2017, villagers in the Philippines did exactly that when massive oarfish washed ashore after an earthquake. These ribbon-like deep-sea creatures can stretch over 30 feet long, with shimmering silver scales and jagged red fins down their back. In Japan, they call them earthquake fish, believed to rise from the depths as omens of disaster. And while scientists aren't so sure, giant oarfish washing ashore are keeping those centuries-old serpent myths very much alive. It's the stuff of legends, but so is the Australian man who once spent over 16 years typing every single number from 1 to 1 million, spelled out in words, on a typewriter. Les Stewart took 16 years to write every word. This wasn't helped by the fact that he only used a single index finger to punch in the keys. By the time he finished, he'd gone through 7 typewriters, 1,000 ink ribbons, around 20,000 pages of paper, and 3.5 million individual keystrokes, all for the world's strangest typing marathon. And now, if you've stuck around, thank you. There's just one more fact. In the 1760s, eccentric inventor Joseph John Merlin rolled out one of his strangest creations, the first patented inline roller skates. They weren't as refined as today, a pair of clunky shoes with metal wheels fixed in a single line. And balance was nearly impossible. This didn't stop Merlin skating into a lavish masquerade ball at London's Carlisle House, violin in hand, in an effort to impress the high society crowd. But unfortunately, he hadn't yet invented brakes. He lost control and crashed spectacularly into a giant mirror. From horned rabbits to bee swarms, from popcorn lung to digital dementia, the world is really stranger than fiction. Let me know if any of these facts blew your mind, and stick around, the next list might be even weirder.